Well, the people in power, whether red or blue, they could not care less about Texas, me and you. They created this give me country that don't value hard work. For a Texan to survive, all we need are some seeds and dirt. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. We believe in family and we value our community. Gladly lend a helping hand to a neighbor in need. And we don't believe that government should provide for all of society's needs. No, it's the pride of a Texan to give to others voluntarily. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country, for it's long gone. They like our tax dollars and they love our natural resources. They don't want to see us driving trucks, they'd rather see us riding horses. And now they want to ban our guns, you know, especially the ones that look scary. But may I remind you of the Gonzales Cannon and the Alamo heroes we buried. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country, for it's long gone. This last verse is straight from the Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 1 and 2. Look it up. Texas is an independent state, yet presently we suffer. We no longer possess the right to locally self-govern. And now it's time as a people in which all political power is inherent. And in such manner we find expedient, we reform or abolish our government. I said, Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone.
Hey, good evening, everyone. It's me, Daniel Miller, and here we are for our weekly late night coffee talk. And I know, for people like me, it's not really late at night, but for some of you, it is a bit past your bedtime. And so I am very appreciative that you stay up on Wednesday nights and just take this time to decompress. I'll be here having coffee, going to talk about some pretty important things tonight. And as always, I will be taking your questions. So be sure to get them in, right? Wherever you're watching this, drop them in the comments. We'll get to them time permitted. And of course, we launched the thing where you can email your questions. coffeetalk@dtnm.org, right? It's literally in the description of this thing. So be sure if you've got questions, go ahead and get them emailed in. And again, we'll get to them time permitting. I'm not going to take the time to go through all of the social media things you need to do on Facebook or YouTube. You know how to do those things. Do all those things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, notification bell, blah, blah, blah. Because frankly, I don't have time tonight to run it all down. You know what to do. And so your first task tonight, before we ever take our first sip of coffee together, is to share this with as many people as you can, right? Because tonight is going to be really a couple of super important things that we need to cover, right? A couple of big ones, right? We're going to talk about election integrity, and it's definitely on everyone's radar right now, and now is the time to talk about it, right? But before I rip into that, and then the other thing, we're going to take a little trip down memory lane, talk a little TNM history for you guys, and obviously take questions. But here's what I got to tell you guys: the runoffs, right? The runoffs are happening, and you need to go out there and you need to support candidates that support your rights under Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution, right? And so I am, if you are in Senate District 24 right now, right, if you live in Senate District 24, if you voted in that primary race, you need to go out right now. Well, obviously not right now, but you need to go out and make sure you vote in the runoffs for Raul Reyes, right? You got to go out there and you got to go cast a vote because he is one of our pledge signers on TakeTexasBack.com. He signed the pledge. He made the runoff. And let me tell you something. That race that he's in is a proxy race. It's Dan Patrick's unfinished business because he has spent all of this time trying to shove Pete Flores down everyone's throat, right? He's paying for Pete to fly around on a private jet. He's treating it like it's a selection and not an election. And let me tell you, Pete didn't sign the pledge. Pete has no time for Texas independence, does not care about Article 1, Section 1 and Article 1, Section 2. But let me tell you who does. Raul does. And so I, as one of our Take Texas Back, or Texas First pledge signers who is in the runoffs, if you are in Senate District, or if you know anyone that lives over there, make sure you get them out to the polls to vote. Make sure you go vote if you haven't done it. Because it is the runoffs are always about who turns out, right? The kind of toe dippers, they're already at their little vacation spots in Colorado for Memorial Day, right? They got started early. But Raul is the guy. And you got to turn up. You got to go support him, right? If you want to know more about him, head over to our website at TakeTexasBack.com. Find him, find his profile there, go visit his website, his social media profiles, find out what you can do to help push him across the finish line. You've got an opportunity to send Dan Patrick a message by sending Pete Flores to the House and sending Raul Reyes, a Texas First candidate, to the Senate. So you owe it to him, you owe it to the cause to go out there and support this guy and make sure he gets it done. And look, I've got to say this too, because there are a couple of other folks. I mean, obviously, municipal races, school board races going on right now. As a matter of fact, you will find TakeTexasBack.com. You will find some of the candidates that have signed the pledge. But I've got a couple of honorable mentions, right? Because last night I was at an event. with Peter Schweizer, who wrote a book, and he really kind of exposes the Chinese communist influence in the U.S. and all that sort of thing. But I sat at a table with someone who was working on a campaign for a school board race at Fort Bend ISD. And we got to talking. He says, "Yeah, I'm working with David Hamilton." I said, "I know David Hamilton. David Hamilton went to war for us, stood in the gap on the resolutions committee in the 2016 Republican Party state convention, went to battle for us." And he literally calls David, gets him on the phone. I've talked to David maybe once or twice since the convention. So I got a chance to talk to him, and he wanted me to just extend to you guys an invitation. If you live in Fort Bend ISD, not only to vote for him, but find out more about him. But I'm going to tell you right now, David was a warrior for us in 2016. And if you can go vote in that election, be sure you go talk to him. And of course, our good friend Ryan Hansen, many of you guys saw during the Texit tour that we did at the beginning of last year. We did an event up in Forney, and I was on a podcast. And Ryan Hansen was one of the hosts of that podcast and had a phenomenal time. He is running for city council up there in Van, Texas. Right. You guys know Van. Van got hit by the tornado. There's a Dairy Queen at that right there that has been there for, I don't know if it's still there, but it's been there right on the interstate for years and years and years. I used to stop in there on my way between Longview and Dallas. But Ryan is a great Texas first guy, pro independence. And if you live in Van or anywhere in the area, show him all the support that you can. We got good people that are still in the fight. Our promise at the beginning of the cycle was every race, every cycle, right? So let's go out there and let's go win. And the way that they stagger these elections out now, it's like perpetual election season. So go support all these guys, right? Be sure you get that done. All right, we're going to get down to it. We like I said, I got a lot to cover. And I want to spend a lot of time taking your questions tonight too, because I imagine we've already got some, but I imagine that there are going to be plenty more. Yeah, I'm looking. There's already questions coming in. So if you're just now joining us, thank you. Get your questions in via the comments. If you're watching on YouTube or the Facebook pages, you can post in the comments, post your question. Kara's doing a good job running interference on those things, and she'll get them posted so I can see them. And we'll take them as we can, right? But let's get down to sort of what's on everyone's mind right now, and particularly what's on my mind. It's been pretty hectic, pretty busy. Got lots of events. As a matter of fact, I'll be in Nacogdoches tomorrow night. Details are on the TNM website, tnm.me/events. If you're anywhere in, driving distance to Nacogdoches, we would love to see you out there. So be sure to check that out. And if you live in the Nacogdoches area, you should have received an email from the TNM today inviting you out to the event. But let's get down to it. So there's been some symposiums, meetings, whatever it is. People are talking about election integrity. As a matter of fact, there was a screening of the movie 2000 Mules that happened tonight. I think there was one that happened last night. It's kind of going on right now. They're going to do an internet release here pretty soon, and it's about, frankly, what happened in the 2020 election. Now, interestingly enough, as these symposiums and these meetings have been going on, I've had to repeat myself a lot. It's like, yeah, this is exactly what we said, right? So tonight we're going to we're going to go back in Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine. Not that far back. We're going to go back to 2019, and we're going to, and maybe a little bit further back, but we're going to talk about some election integrity things, right? So let me begin by just reminding everyone that the TNM was founded in 2005, and a key component of what we advocate for in the TNM is putting the question of Texas independence on a ballot for people to vote on, okay? So you can only imagine that, because we didn't just fall off the turnip truck. We did an extensive 2-year study on independence movements around the world, especially there were about 50, I think 48 or 50 independence referenda that we studied prior to the foundation of the TNM. And so right out of the gate, we knew that if we were going to call for a referendum, election integrity was going to be a big deal, right? We had to be able to trust the vote because we have seen totalitarian regimes and those that hate to lose control. And I know for some of you, that's going to be a shock to the system, right? Like I just walked up and slapped you in the face with a sock full of wet dog crap, right? I know that's going to be a shock that I put the United States federal government in the same class as those totalitarian regimes that rig elections and do things like that. But you got to understand, sometimes you got to call it like it is. The similarity between the totalitarian regimes and the federal government is they will do whatever they can to try to maintain power. The United States little less heavy-handed about it than some of those totalitarian regimes. But nonetheless, they love to work behind the scenes. And so, you gotta go in not like, some Pollyanna view, rose-colored glasses of the way things are. You gotta look at the way things really are, and you've got to accept them. And you've got to say, okay, look, if we're going to do this, what are the things we need to watch out for, right? Whether it's the government, bad actors within the government, state actors, foreign state actors, whether it's third-party organizations, whatever it is, you got to be on the defense. And that's what they say, right? Best offense, good defense. And it's not like we're playing defense, but you're an idiot if you don't lock your doors and close your windows at night, okay? So that has led us to be very aware of the issues surrounding. And one of the things that we have called for, even in the very early versions of the Texas Independence Referendum Act, right, even probably before the draft that many of you seen. Some of you, the only one that you have seen is in this book. There were actually 2 draft versions of it prior to that. One of those, the second one, became HCR 77 that was filed by State Representative James White, where they stripped out the referendum language, okay? But one of the things we've wanted, and it's not necessarily a deal killer for us on the referendum, but it's been super high on the wish list, and that is paper ballots. And a lot of people say, well, that's just difficult. People will balk, paper ballots, et cetera, et cetera. But we say there's a good reason that we want paper ballots. So, you go through many, many years of talking about election integrity and the election system here in Texas and kind of how screwed up it is, parallel to our work related to the referendum. Okay. So we go into, let's just say in 2017, there's a convention, basically a hackers convention up in Las Vegas. They call themselves white hats, right? They're computer security people, but they're hackers. And what they do is they're super interested in cybersecurity, right? So they have a convention up there called DEFCON in Las Vegas. And in 2017, they started a project called the Voting Machine Hacking Village, right? Where they would bring in voting machines and they would essentially do penetration testing on them. Like, let's just see if we can hack these things. Let's see from a security standpoint what we can find, and let's report that to the officials so they can plug the holes, right? So that was 2017. So you had 2017. Well, then in 2019, this article appeared on the TNM website with the headline that says, "New report shows that your vote is not safe." Okay, that's because there was a report that was released in August of 2019, where at DEFCON, at this voting machine hacking village, where it was a bombshell. Okay, now let me tell you, here's the cover of the report, right, from DEFCON 27. That is the report, August of 2019. And I want to show you, this is the after action report that we posted. They released this report after it was all over with, and it was a bombshell, right? But unless anyone wants to accuse us of peddling weird conspiracy theories and unvetted information and all this, let me just show you who some of the people were on this report, right? I mean, look at those credentials. Matt Blaze from Georgetown University, right? I mean, you had Georgetown University, Nordic Innovation Labs, University of Chicago, 3 more people from Georgetown University that collected all of this information and issued the report. And when I say the report was a bombshell, right? When I say it was a bombshell, I'm not exaggerating, because here's what happened. And let me show you on the screen right here, straight from the report. They talk about in the report, right at the very beginning, what the purpose of the voting village was, and it was to identify vulnerabilities in the election system. And so here's what they did right here. Over the course of 2.5 days, hackers, technologists, academics, and other experts had full access to over 100 voting village-owned voting machines to study, as well as the opportunity to attend talks and panels. Okay, so you had over 100 currently in service electronic voting machines. Now, they talk about here, and I'm going to tell you, they sort of soft pedal it here at the beginning. They say the clear conclusion, which to me, this was not the clear conclusion, but it says the clear conclusion in 2019 is that independent security experts and hackers are stepping into the breach, providing expertise, answers, and solutions to election administrators, policymakers, and ordinary citizens where few others can. I don't disagree with that. But is that really the clear conclusion? Now, yes, it is a conclusion in the sense that these folks are doing what, frankly, our state government should already be doing, right? I mean, let's be honest. When it comes to technology, our folks are probably the folks here, the officials here in Texas, when you're, electing from your local community, your election administrator, or some of these people that work at the state, the Secretary of State's office, they're probably not the best at technology. Should we forget how difficult it was for the same caliber of people, right? Judges and attorneys and folks of that like, to even use Zoom during the COVID lockdowns.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to take
we're trying to. Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I can see that.
Right. So when it comes to technology, these guys here at, that are doing this work at DEFCON are probably going to be far more savvy on this than the I'm not a cats of the world. Right. So, on one hand, you got white hat hackers that are deliberately trying to determine whether there are vulnerabilities in the system. And on the other hand, you have the not cats of the world, okay, that are actually administering these elections. And we'll get to that here in a moment. Right. But so, they're standing, but that's not the clear conclusion, because here is really what you all need to understand. And again, they soft pedal it, right? But it says commercially available voting system hardware used in the U.S. remains vulnerable to attack. Now, here's the takeaway. I'm going to save you a ton of time. They were able to hack over a course of 2.5 days all of the electronic voting machines, every single solitary one. Okay. Now, if you think that they had to jump through some hoops, right? Look, hacking is hacking, right? But if you think that they had to go to some extraordinary lengths or measures, think again. Because here's an excerpt of the report. And it says, and once again, Voting Village participants were able to find new ways or replicate previously published methods of compromising every one of the devices in the room in ways that could alter stored vote tallies, change ballots displayed to voters, or alter the internal software that controls the machines. Now, does any of that sound remotely familiar? Perhaps. You'll go back to one of my previous coffee talks, the election postmortem, and you saw some of the questions that I asked. One of the reasons that I said that people should be asking these questions is because of this report that we first published in 2019. This report from DEFCON, right? But it goes on to say this. In many cases, the DEFCON participants tested equipment they had no prior knowledge of or experience with and worked with any tools they could find. In a challenging setting with far fewer resources and far less time than a professional lab or even the most casual attacker would typically have. In most cases, vulnerabilities could be exploited under election conditions, surreptitiously by means of exposed external interfaces accessible to voters or precinct poll workers or to any other individual with brief physical access to the machines. In particular, many vectors for so-called advanced persistent threat attacks continue to be found or replicated. Here it is. Here's your takeaway. This means that an attack that could compromise an entire jurisdiction could be injected in any of multiple places during the lifetime of the system. 2019, right? Not this week, not last week, not last month, not last year. 2019, which was replicating the results that they have received ever since they launched this project in 2017. So they launched it in 2017. We have basically a Cassandra's cry over here, right? Ahead of the 2020 election, we've had a legislative session since then. And what we got was not stronger penalties for election misdeeds. We got weaker penalties and no action on this. Instead, what we got treated to was more electronic voting, right? And laws and policies generated around that electronic voting by the I'm not a cat crowd, right? So the not a cat people are the ones that have allowed this to happen. These vulnerabilities still exist. Don't think that between 2019 and now, they patched the holes, because they didn't, right? So let's get down to it. So just so you guys know, there was a symposium that was held. As a matter of fact, Daphne Armour, our chief of staff, our PR director, our media person, Sharon McCassell was there. McCassell, sorry, I get it wrong every time. And of course, our election integrity task force chief, Kleber Kamal Amani. They went to this thing up in DFW. And interestingly enough, what they did at that was they gave a physical demonstration on video, on a screen, of this happening in real time. They showed what the findings were. This is some video, just short, few minutes from that very demonstration.
In Colorado. So the first thing that I did here when I got this system up and running, there we go. So I wanted to see what the experience would be for someone actually sitting in front of it. So an election official, a clerk, perhaps sitting in front of the system. I want to see how secure is the system actually.
Can you explain what a forensic image is?
Sure. Yeah, a forensic image is an exact copy So it's as if you had a piece of paper and you put it in a copy machine, hit copy, you got an exact copy out. That's what a forensic image is. But it's exactly identical copy. You would use something like that if you needed to rebuild the computer. Let's say the hard drive crashed. So when you do a full backup of your computer, like a time machine backup, your hard drive crashes, you put a new hard drive in, and then you restore from your backup. It's essentially that, but it's even better because it can be used for court cases as well. So this is the system that you're looking at right now. The first thing I did is just poked around just to see what's on the system. And I noticed the first on the list here was a tool. It's a free tool from Microsoft. You can download it, and it allows you to get into the back end of a database system. I was kind of shocked to see a tool like this on there. It shouldn't be, in my opinion. But I went ahead and clicked on it to see, well, does it work? Can I get into the database? I clicked on it. It came right up. I was a little bit surprised there. I figured, well, I'm just going to click connect and see what happens. I'm expecting to see an error message saying, no, you can't go any further. We're not going to let you. I click connect, and it opens right up. And I see databases here. I open up the databases to see what's in it. And this is something that any election official that has access to this system could do. So anyone that's operating the system, if they left the room and the janitor walked in and sat in front of this computer, this is the access someone would have, physically sitting in front of this computer in the elections office. So I see all these databases. I see Mesa County Coordinated Election, Mesa County General, Primary. I think there's even a dog catcher election down here as well. Municipal elections, they're all in here. Huge list of them. And I thought, okay, well, there's no way it's going to let me go into one of these because that would be horribly insecure. I clicked on that and it opens up. Click on tables to see what tables are in here, and these are just records of information. And I figured, well, there's no way it's going to let me, for instance, open up and look at one of these tables of information, is there? I haven't experienced a single error message. Anything saying access denied, or you're not supposed to be here, not even a warning. And I've got direct access to all the choices on the ballot. Right here.
Mark, would you have to have a password, or would you have to have logged into the computer with a password in order to access this?
So the question was, would you have had to have logged into the computer to have accessed this? And yes, you would have. You would have needed the password that the election official would have. And if the election official left it logged in and walked out of the room, and someone else walked in and they didn't lock it or log out, anyone would have access to this. If you happen to have, let's say, a bad actor that was an election official, they got direct access to this. Now, I think personally, all election officials are incredibly honest and patriotic Americans and want to do a great job for the citizens that elected them. But could a bad actor be put in that position? Possibly. Would it be responsible for a system to be designed in a way that would allow a bad actor to access this kind of information? Or should there be restrictions in place? I'm shocked there wasn't. So I went ahead and said, all right, well, can I change this information? I know I can see it. Can I change it? So I right click, I hit edit, and this is with a tool built into the server, provided by the vendor who wrote this software. And sure enough, I get right in here and I can make changes to this database, just like you would in Excel. Tables, all I do is click on it and type a number and hit enter. We'll say quite.
Yeah, so there it is, right? I mean, so they're showing something that we've known about and have been talking about and screaming from the mountaintops about since 2019, begging people to do something about it, right? From a public policy perspective, let's do something about it. And we've said time and time again, folks, you got to get a little upset about this, because when we see statistical anomalies and we see weirdness in these elections, whether it's what we saw, what's being exposed in that movie 2000 Mules, or what people, said they saw in 2020, or what we saw in this primary, or even as far back as what we saw in races in 2010 and 2012, right? This is not going to change unless you make it a priority. Unless you get in the game. And people say, well, what are we supposed to do about it? What's the solution? Well, look, let me just say this. Boom. Here's what they said. Takeaway 1 was the electronic machines suck. Takeaway 2 from the report is there is an urgent need for paper ballots and risk limiting audits. By urgent, they mean this is what you have to do to fix the problem. Now, there's another solution to fix this problem, right? Which is, well, we can talk about that, but to serve as a check on this sort of thing, and it's part of what the TNM is involved in right now, right? What we're doing right now, this very moment. Why we keep telling all of you, if you haven't done this already, go do it. Join, become a volunteer, right? TNM.me/volunteer. Go do this. Go do this now. Because it's going to take a small army of people to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So get in the game now. But this is what it said. There's an urgent need for paper ballots and risk limiting audits. Listen to their conclusion. Now, this is from the tech guys, the white hats, the people that could pin this stuff. It is beyond the current and foreseeable state of the art to construct computerized, software and hardware-based voting devices that effectively resist known practical forms of malicious tampering. However, this need not mean that elections must forever be vulnerable to compromise, right? And so what do they say? Systems that use paper ballots are physically designed to preserve a voter-marked record of each voter's intended choices, which cannot be altered by even the most maliciously compromised software. And they go on to talk about how they make sure that the paper ballots are secure, right? So you don't get, LBJ's ballot box 13 ballot stuffing, right? And there's law on the books now that say that there should be numbered ballots. But what they're suggesting and have been suggesting since this report in 2019 is ditch the electronic voting machines, or at a very minimum, have paper ballots that can be audited to say this is a legitimate paper ballot. And when the electronic counts don't match the paper ballots, then it's off. The paper ballots reign supreme, right? But they won't even do that, won't even do the basic. And so you get what you got. You get what you got. So here's the thing. We know here in Texas that every county has the option to ditch the electronic voting machines and go paper. So if you want to put pressure somewhere, put pressure in your county to ditch the voting machines. Go to your commissioner's court and raise holy hell. Shove this report in their face and go, if we're using electronic voting systems, they can be hacked and probably are. I mean, given what we've seen, it would be a reasonable assumption, right? But this is DEFCON. This is not Daniel Miller. This is not the TNM. This is a third party who's saying, TNM, Daniel Miller, you've been right to be concerned about the use of electronic voting machines. Unreal. So they talk about all these new hybrid, the report goes on to talk about all these new hybrid systems that people are touting are still vulnerable because when they dissected them, they were supposed to have separate architecture and they don't. They're tied together. But the report is pretty extensive. And I would recommend that you go right now to the TNM's website, go to the news section, and search for that article, right? This new report shows that your vote is not safe. And there is a link in the article to this report. download it. It's in PDF format. Download it and send it everywhere. Or better yet, do a solid, right? Because as far as we know, no one else in political advocacy in Texas promoted this, publicized this, got it out there. Do us a solid. Use the share buttons on the page and share the article. Go share it right now. Find it. Go share it. Let people know. Right? Yeah. We were ahead of the curve, like most things, right? But the fact of the matter is, this is not about whizzing on fence posts right now. This is about fixing our election system because, we're closer now to a Texas referendum than we have ever been. And the last thing we want is to have 60% of the voting population in Texas supporting Texas and having this thing ripped out from us because some pimple-faced kid that lives that blogs from his mom's basement is able to hack into these machines and change the vote. Right? And I'm not saying that this is some kid that's doing this. I have my belief about what I think is going on, but I can't prove that's who it is. But I'm going to tell you what our election integrity task force, one of the questions they are answering right now is who. That is the thing. Who is responsible? And I'm going to tell you, when they answer that question, then we'll all know, right? So anyway, folks, this doggone report, I went through it again. I've been through it like 3 or 4 times. They list out all the machines, all the models of machines they worked on. There's just, they talked about infrastructure vulnerabilities. I could spend an hour going through this thing, but I'm not going to because I have to take your questions. I was going to talk about really I was going to take that trip down memory lane and talk about some of the things that the TNM has done in the past, but that's going to have to wait because I did take up half of our time together over this particular thing. And look, it's 47 pages. Be sure to go get that done. You will definitely be happy that you did. Okay. So we've got lots of questions piling in, and very happy that you guys have been submitting them. And of course, via this, and I'm going to get to one of these really, really quickly, but I want to get this prepped just really quickly to answer this because this question, I've been asked this question a lot. It was asked, I think, last Coffee Talk, and I answered it for some folks, but apparently I did not cite chapter and verse of the Texas Election Code. So I'm going to do that tonight. So here is the question. Let's see if it's here. It's not here. Doggone it. There it is. Doggone, man. I'm all over the place tonight. Okay, so this is from someone on Facebook. It says Facebook user. So I don't know who you are, but like I said, I've had this asked a lot. But this is from one of the delegates to, I'm guessing, the Republican Party convention. It says, Daniel, we need information from the election code not to pay to be a state delegate. I have a lot of people that don't want to pay because they know they don't have to, and they feel they're being taken advantage of. We need this information ASAP. All right, so let me clarify this a bit. Right, I'm not encouraging you not to pay. Right, I get where the Republican Party of Texas is coming from. Right, it takes money to run a convention, to do those things. I get that. Okay, trust me, it's someone who is the head of a political advocacy organization that is, that is, except for the 2 major political parties, the largest political advocacy organization in Texas. I understand that it takes money to run an operation. Okay, what this is alluding to is in 2016, when Tom Meckler was the chairman, and he treated our people like garbage. He said that we were basically traitors and seditionists, and totally treated members of the Republican Party that were also members of the T&M, treated them like garbage. And that included me because I was a delegate to that convention. I said, if I'm not gonna pay for that. I'm not gonna pay for that, and they can't make me, right? And they said, oh well, you have to pay to register. It's like, oh no, I don't, right? Now, if Tom Meckler came out and not that an apology would have made a difference at the time, but if circumstances were different, I'd have been happy to pay my share, right? But the way that we were treated, I was not going to do that, and nor were they legally allowed to do that. And here's why. You see, here's a little thing called the Texas Election Code, and it deals specifically with the conventions. Right here it is. Election Code, Title 10, political parties. There it is. Parties nominating by primary election. That's the Republican Party. Chapter 174, conventions. You go down here to 174.004, and here are the eligibility requirements. A political party may not impose eligibility requirements in addition to those prescribed by this title for serving as a delegate to a county, senatorial district, or state convention held under this code. Okay? So your position as a delegate is covered, right? The eligibility requirements are set in the Texas Election Code, and they cannot set the bar any higher, right? They can't make you, wear a wig. They can't make you dress in a funny hat, right? They can't make you spin around 3 times and then pat your head and rub your stomach to be a delegate. They also cannot force you to pay to do your duty as a delegate. That is an eligibility requirement, and they are not allowed under 174.004 to impose any additional eligibility requirements. Okay? So, boom, shakalaka. So, we got that question answered, but, here's the thing. Do with it what you will. If you feel compelled to pay your part, do it. But at the end of the day, as a delegate, they cannot force you. They can't force you. And really and truly, I think this kind of gets down to some of the things we talked about related to political parties a few weeks ago, which is the 2 major political parties have become so entrenched in the Texas Election Code that it represents a step. And you know what? That's a 2-way street, right? You don't get the coverage and protection of the Texas Election Code when you want it to knock everybody else out of the boat, and then get to flaunt it when or cry cry river when it doesn't go your way, right? They have imposed, because the political parties are entrenched in the Texas Election Code, they got to play by those rules, and it is a 2-way street. And that's one of the things right there, right? Those eligibility, they can't do it. So if you're having challenges there, do what you got to do. You make your decision. I'm not telling you to pay. I'm not telling you not to pay. If I were a delegate, had I been chosen this go around, I would have paid, right? I would have paid. Maybe. Let's see what happens with our convention booth. Let's see what happens with that. Then we'll know, right? But anyway, it's your choice. Okay. So let's take another question. Let's take one of the email questions. Speaking of, Stacy wants to know about she's going to be a delegate to the convention. I can't display these on the screen. But Stacy says, I'm a delegate to the state convention, received emails from Alma Perez Jackson and Dr. Dana Myers asking for my vote. I know that Dr. Dana Myers is married to John Spires, who ran for land commissioner, and he signed the Texas First Pledge. Who do you think would be the most T&M friendly person for the job? I don't know the answer to that. I know that Alma actually signed the petition during the petition campaign. She was vice chair under James Dickey, if I remember correctly. And had always been open and friendly to us. As a matter of fact, the first time I met her was at the SREC meeting before the 2016 convention, right? That Q4 2015 meeting, out there in the lobby where we talked about the fight to get Texans a vote on this. And she was unaware of the fight, but listened very openly, and I think is a supporter of the right of the people to vote on it. And then, of course, Dr. Dana, I met her and got to spend plenty of time with her out there on the campaign trail with Dr. Spires when he was out there running for land commissioner. Got to be super good friends with those folks. And Dr. Dana is she's solid. I don't know specifically where she is on this, but I do know this. The pledge at taketexasback.com is available for any candidate still to go sign, right? So you municipal candidates, right? You local level candidates, you school board candidates, go to taketexasback.com and sign the pledge. And that goes for people if you're running for precinct chairs or SREC or party chair or, any of those things, anything, there is the pledge that you can take, and there are provisions in that pledge that are applicable to you. And I'm going to tell you, I do my candidate shopping from the pledge signatories. Anyone who does not sign that pledge does not get my vote on anything. And that's just kind of the way it is. And that's the way we've all got to be moving forward. If they're not willing to put their name on the line which is dotted and make a pledge commitment to support our right to self-determination, right, our fundamental inalienable right under Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution, then do they deserve our vote, right? It would be akin to them not signing a pledge to protect the freedom of speech or freedom of religion or the right to keep and bear arms. That's how we have to look at it. And I'm sure we all view that sort of reluctance dimly, would we not? Okay, let's get down to this. Okay, here's a fun one. This isn't a question. This is a knothead. Rod says, "So do it already. This idea has been ongoing for 50 plus years." Well, I know, Rod. I've never heard of you. So my guess is you've probably done nothing to help the effort. So your comment goes in file 13. If you'd like to help, I'll just help you. Let me help you help us. There it is. TNM.me/volunteer. Skin in the game or you don't get to comment. All right. Let's get to some more of these questions tonight. Yeah, okay, this is a good one. This is a good post-Texit question. Let's do this. David says, "I read Texit, desire it so my son can live in an independent Texas. Am I correct in understanding the idea for social services for the disabled would be to utilize monies that currently go to DC?" Yeah, I mean, look, when we think about, when people talk about Social Security and disability and things of this nature, we have to remember that, when people say, "What are you going to do without that federal money?" Well, we're going to actually have more of it because we overpay anywhere from $103 to $160 billion annually into the federal system, right? So you have to understand that for every dollar that comes into Texas from the federal government, it first came out of our pockets, went to Washington, D.C., took about a 40% haircut, and then came back, right? And it's like the thing I talk about all the time. It's like going to a doctor and the doctor pulling all the blood out of your body, spilling about half of it on the floor, 40% technically, pumping the rest of it back into your body and saying, "There, you wouldn't be alive without me," right? I mean, that's what it's like. So the beautiful part is when we keep our money here, we have more of it, but it also means that we can spend it according to our priorities, right? And not have to waste it on 2.5 million unelected federal bureaucrats. And, it gives us an opportunity to do better with that money than Washington, D.C. ever could. So, yeah, you were able to work that out, and I'm glad. I hope you really enjoyed Texit. Thank you for getting it. And that's a good reminder, right? If you don't have your copy of Texit, you can head over to the TNM website right now, tnm.me/Texit book, and get your copy. Also available on my website at danielomiller.com or Amazon. I think you can still get it on Barnes and Noble. It's been an Amazon bestseller 4 times. Let's go make it 5, right? Okay, questions, man. I'm gonna try to plow through them tonight. I don't want to leave any stone unturned. Okay, so this is related probably to what we're talking about with the elections. Melissa wants to know, when you have time, if you know, what do you think about ES&S Express vote system? Solid or able to be manipulated? Look, paper ballots. I'm with the conclusion in that report is that as it stands right now, there is no technology readily available to make electronic voting secure. Paper ballots and risk limit auditing. Those are the 2 solutions. And so from a policy perspective, all of our counties, and frankly, it should be a statewide requirement that we go back to paper ballot. And not just any paper ballot, not scrawling on the back of a cocktail napkin. I mean, there are secure paper ballot methods that prevent ballot stuffing and things of that nature, but effectively make them more secure than electronic voting ever would be under current technology and current circumstances. So yeah, I don't trust the electronic, and it's not because, trust me, I'm in the technology business. I mean, that's how I put food on my table. So I'm not a Luddite, right? I'm not looking to go return back to the horse and buggy days. Although there is the older I get, the more attraction I have to that sort of simplicity. But as a tech guy, and I can remember standing at a meeting in, I think it was it DeWitt County, Victoria? One of you guys will have to remind me. It was one of the candidate forums we did, and they asked about electronic voting systems. And I stood up, after all the other candidates spoke, I stood up and said, look, I work in tech, and I'm here to tell you there is no unhackable electronic voting machine. And any election conducted with electronic voting machine is going to have a question mark on it. It will forevermore have an asterisk next to the results. So that's where I stand. And I don't come at it from a position of, I just love paper ballots. I come at it from a position of understanding technology, because I have to work with it every single solitary day. Okay. And Matthew, that's sort of your question. He says, assuming Texit happens, which it will, what would our voting system look like? Machines, in person only? Yeah. I mean, look, the things that we have to do to get us to Texit and win Texit are probably going to be some of the things that are going to be in place afterwards. And if we can't trust electronic voting machines, then I could guess that the people of Texas are probably going to want to maintain paper ballots by the time it's all over with. Yeah. Okay, this is a good one. Man, I like this. Okay. So El Scorpio Perfecto, which is a pretty awesome YouTube name, by the way, says, how could a Texit referendum make sure a scenario and how Ottawa cheated the Quebecois out of independence? Look, I'm going to tell you as we've studied what happened in Quebec, it's been interesting, right? They've had 2 referenda. But what's interesting was the Canadian Supreme Court set a really interesting, really arbitrary, if you want to get down to it, threshold for victory, right? They set their victory at 55%, which is pretty interesting in the scheme of international sort of, I guess when you study all these different referenda around the world, the arbitrary 55% was just unusual. I've always found it to be somewhat of an outlier. I mean, it's definitely an outlier because I've not known anyone else to do that. But there seemed to be no rational logic behind the 55% threshold. But here's what I'll tell you, because I could really talk about this one for 30 minutes because I think it's so fascinating. But I will tell you, if you're a member of the TNM, you can go to our website and log in. And if you go to the Insider blog under members, right? So it's a place where we keep all these articles just for members. There is a legislative action workshop that we did a few years back. And one of the interviews that was done during the legislative action workshop was with a young man named Jake Provencier, who was writing a book specifically talking about the comparisons between what happened in Quebec and what's happening here in Texas. So look, go find that, and I think it actually may be on our YouTube channel as well. But it's definitely worth a watch, and I would definitely love to have that conversation more in depth sometime soon. But great question, and thank you for that. Okay, let's get to one of the other ones being that has been emailed in, because I'm running short on time. I got to hurry. Eric says, this is a piecemeal break from the federal government, a viable tactic to run in parallel with Texit now. For example, with all the craziness going on in K through 12 schools, is the time ripe to have T&M campaign for rejecting federal education funding so that we can completely rid Texas from all the regulatory strings that come along with the funding. Okay. So the answer to your question, really I think what the gist of your question is should we be doing some things in the interim between now and Texas, right? And the answer to your question is yes, and we already are, right? Go look at the mission of the TNM, right? If you go look at the mission of the TNM, one of the things you're going to see, and that, it surprises me every day how I have to talk about this, but our mission is not just Texit, right? That is a huge part of it, right? That's the one that everybody focuses in on, is Texit, but it's not the only thing, right? Because Texit is a political mechanism to achieve independence, right? So, I mean, when you look at our mission, and here I'll even make this bigger for you guys, right here on the About page on our website, our mission is to secure and protect the political, cultural, and economic independence of the nation of Texas, and to restore and protect a constitutional republic and the inherent rights of the people of Texas. So, when you look at independence is not an act; it is a state of being. Right? You're always moving toward being independent, fully, politically, culturally, economically. Right? So independence is the destination. All of these other things are steps along the way. Right? A Texit vote. What is a Texit vote? If you break it down, a Texit vote is an expression of the political will of the people of Texas to reassert their full rights of independence, right? To essentially break ties, to withdraw from things, programs, institutions that limit our ability to be independent. Okay, so, and that's political, that's cultural, that's economic. That's effectively withdrawing from that political and economic union referred to as the United States federal government. It's withdrawing. Okay, but all of that is to move us toward a greater degree of independence. So when you look at the history of what we've done in the TNM, you will see that we always talk about this, that Texit is not an act, it's a process. The Texit referendum is an act, it's a single point in history, but it kicks off a process, the process of Texit, which ends in independence. But what do we do until then? Well, there are ways that we set the stage and to begin withdrawing. One of the first things we do, and it's the watchword for our legislative priorities every session, is we want to try to disentangle our economic system from the federal government. So, right, we're already working to try to untangle as much of that as possible. So, when you talk about, running in parallel with, it's just part, for us, it's part of the process. It's understanding what that process is in the lead up to the Texit vote. And the more independence we can gain between now and the Texit vote, the better off we're going to be. So, one of the reasons that we got and helped push the Texas Gold Depository Act across the finish line, right? It advanced the cause of economic independence. It's why we do things like, like when, people thought we were nuts when we were like, hey, why are you guys out here writing and championing a bill to allow the sale of fireworks on Texas Independence Day and San Jacinto Day? Again, something we got across the finish line. Well, because that advances the cause of cultural independence, right? If you can buy those things on July the 4th and Cinco de Mayo, but Texas Independence Day and San Jacinto Day are excluded, then what that means is that we are not culturally independent. So we need to, at a minimum, raise those to the same level as those other holidays by opening them up, right? And letting those things happen. So you will always see us working on other legislation like monument protection, right? When we were working the Alamo issues starting back in 2009, all of those things work toward disentangling us from the federal government. So to the point of, this one in particular, when we release the legislative priorities, absolutely we're going to talk about it. Like it's one of the most controversial things I said on the campaign trail, right? Not declaring an invasion, militarizing the state guard, tax it. Literally one of the most controversial things that stirred up the most controversy on the campaign trail was when I made the suggestion, which was an old TNM legislative priority that we pursued every session for several sessions, that we stop out-of-state campaign contributions to Texas-only campaigns, right? I mean, you'd have thought that I would have come in and dropped rattlesnakes in the middle of the room. They just totally freaked out. But when you look at it, it's a sovereignty issue, not a campaign finance issue. Why is California and New York and K-Street lobbyists dumping money into Texas races, right? We don't allow it from China or Mexico or Russia or in these other places. Why would we allow it from those? It's a sovereignty issue. It's about reclaiming sovereignty and saying that Texas elections are for Texans and Texans alone. So, this is, to your point, Eric, I mean, this is what we're already doing. We have been doing it since 2005 because at our launch, we've always had a holistic view of this. Our vision, our mission, our principles have remained unchanged since 2005. Like literally from the day we were founded, we had a plan and we're working that plan. People say, like that dipstick earlier, who's like, why haven't you done it yet? Well, if it were up to me and I had a magic wand, it'd already be done, but we're working the plan. The people will dictate the time frame, right? Because ultimately, Article 1, Section 2, all political power is inherent. All right. Well, folks, that's all I got time for tonight. I'm a couple minutes over time, but just a reminder, when you get this, be sure to share it. And of course, if you're watching this on the replay, like, share, comment, do what you can. And of course, just a quick rundown. If you have or want to be a part of our efforts to secure the elections, drop an email to electionfraud@thetnm.org. There you can report election irregularities, or you can volunteer to be on our election integrity task force. We need all the help we can get. If you're one of these local candidates, head over to taketexasback.com. That's taketexasback.com. And of course, if you are not a member of the Texas Nationalist movement, go join now. tnm.me/join. That is tnm.me/join. And then, of course, while you're over there, join a local group too, right? Go to tnm.me/local groups. Get involved locally. It is going to be the key thing to help us win, is getting you guys involved locally. So be sure you do that. And again, tomorrow night, I will be in Nacogdoches. The event, the information is at tnm.me/events. That's tnm.me/events. And that's it for Late Night Coffee Talk, my friends. Tonight, I will leave you with the words I leave you with every week. They are the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now. And the question is, will you stand with